ครับ
สามสอง
So you are in Thailand to round up the support for the France to host the World Expo 2025?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
We are competing for this big event. You know, there's one Universal Expo every 5 years. Shanghai, Milano last year, Dubai 2020, and hopefully Paris 2025, although we have other competitors, Japan, Russia, and Azerbaijan. So it's a competition, it's a healthy competition.
So what would be the factor that France should be the one that gets selected instead of Russia, Japan, Azerbaijan?
Well, that's what member countries of the International Bureau of Exhibition will have to decide at the end of next year.
Okay.
There's a vote. Why should they vote for France? A, because we have a more meaningful theme, which is knowledge to share, planet to care. That's 2025 is 10 years after the Paris Agreement, 5 years before the deadline of the 2030 SDGs. So the theme is how do you put science, technology, knowledge to the service of a better environment. And this is a big issue for new generations, which we have consulted on this theme. Second reason, France is a larger attendance. We pitch for 40 million visitors, given the attractiveness of France, of Paris. And we will locate this in a scientific cluster. And the third is that we have a very sustainable legacy. The view we have that what we call the global village would be the place where the expo would take place, would be then transformed into a student's residence. So if Thailand has a pavilion in 2025 for 6 months, Thailand will display Thailand technology, Thailand art, Thailand culture, and then Thailand will be able to leave its pavilion as a student's residence, because this is a big cluster with many, many young people who are studying already.
Why France want to be the host?
It's because we want to build a bridge between the past and the future.
Okay.
Past was France participating in most universal exhibitions, including during the 19th century, when we were one of the initiators of that. We remember full well that in 1889, there were two things that struck people. The Siam Pavilion, who had a roof like this, which we remember, and the Eiffel Tower, which was also a roof like this.
Right.
So the notion that there was a correspondence between France and Thailand in 1889 is something we value, but we also want to look to the future. We want to make sure that science, the progress of science and knowledge, works for people, i.e. for the planet. We only want one planet. We know that young people are worried that there is a degradation, so we want to use this expo to accelerate a more sustainable development in the line of what France and Europe have been pleading in the world for the last 20 years.
So the proposed theme is Global Village?
The proposed theme is knowledge to share,
Knowledge to share.
planet to care.
Planet to care. What is
These
the
two things.
reason? I feel like it has some relation with the COP
Of course it has.
and the climate change
Of
seminar
course it
that
has.
just
Of
concluded.
course it has. I mean, Paris is the place where the COP21 agreement took place in 2015. 2025 is 10 years later. Good occasion to take stock. And, as I said, 5 years before 2030, which is the horizon of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, to which all countries on this planet are committed. So it's a real universal endeavor, and we want the French candidature to be right in line with this universal UN agenda.
If I have the information correctly, France has hosted World Expo for 5 times already in 19th century.
In the 19th century, you're absolutely right, starting with 1857, and ending 1900. We haven't had a Universal Expo since 1900, true.
What have you learned from that as a host?
We've learned and that was a very ancient time.
Right.
We've learned that you need a very clear theme, which country participants like Thailand can easily interpret, make their own theme within this frame. We've learned that you need a formidable transport system. We have this in Paris. And you need a hosting culture. And, you know, France remains the number one tourist destination on this planet, with roughly 80 million tourists a year. By 2025, we probably will have 100 million. So we know how to host tourists. We have the logistics for that. We have the food for that. We have the art for that. We have the culture for that. France is a renowned destination.
Now, as the former Director General of World Trade Organization, I think I have to ask for your opinion. What is your view of the Europe economy in 2018?
Doing much better. I mean, like many other countries, between 2008 and the beginning of the financial crisis and 2015 was tough times. We lost growth. I mean, we are only now recovering the level of GNP per head which we had in 2009. So it's doing much better. Around 2.5-3% growth on average, including, of course, Eastern Europe, which is growing more rapidly, and 2017 and 18 looking better.
Will Brexit has any effect in the coming years?
It will, mostly for Britain, unfortunately. Yes. I've always said and thought that Brexit, which is getting the British egg out of the EU omelette, is not the right thing to do. You know, the Brits were fervent pushers of market integration, and they now are the one that wants market disintegration. And market disintegration will be costly for the UK. And given that their interaction with the continent still is roughly 50% of their economy, this is not good for the continent. But in a proportion, it's a small damage, but still a damage which, unfortunately, we should have avoided us all.
Protectionism is on the rise. What is your view on it?
I'm not sure protectionism is on the rise. I mean, protectionist discourse is on the rise. Okay. True. And that stems from the fact that, you know, globalization and trade opening has not been good for everybody. It's overall a good thing. But this good thing is the sum of very good things for some and bad things for others. And we probably, worldwide, haven't been attentive enough to the impact of globalization and market opening on people who lose their jobs. So, hence this political discourse. The only place where this political discourse has transformed into protectionism recently is the United States of America, with a new president, who, as you know, is
America
much more
first
protectionist.
policy.
Absolutely. Imports are bad, exports are good, which is a strange thing to believe, because this cannot be true for everybody, as the overall sum of imports equal the overall sum of exports. So the only place where this protectionist political approach is biting into reality, unfortunately, is the US, and this is a serious problem because the US is not a small country.
And another question, cryptocurrency is a hot topic of 2017, I would say. What is your view on it? And that some people say that it's gonna, something like Bitcoin, gonna burst very soon.
I mean, I think we have to make a distinction between cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin.
Something totally separated.
Bitcoin is one version of cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
My own view for the future is that cryptocurrencies is the currency of the future, but it will remain driven by central banks. We cannot have, in my view, a private currency which is used for money laundering, for crime, for terrorism, we need a currency to be something serious, driven by serious institutions. Although I totally agree that my grandchildren will probably don't need to have a current currency which they put in their pockets. All
Right.
this will be crypto, and there is with the new technologies, cryptocurrencies may be safer, provided they are driven by a public system.
And it has to be regulated. Is that,
It
is that
has
what
to be
you-
regulated because I don't think you can leave sort of grey or dark or black money in a world where most people will pay taxes in 2050. I mean, there'll be 9 billion people on this planet by that time, and by that time 7 million people will pay taxes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
My pleasure.
time. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
And I probably would need a little bit of your time to say something to Thai people for the new year.
Of course.